Quiet on set. Picture is up. All right, roll sound.
Rolling.
Roll cameras.
Cam's rolling.
And 3, 2.
Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Hank's Think Tank. Today is the day before Election Day, I believe. So before Tuesday. And I finally got Jameson Ellis in here. And we've been trying to get this thing done, but he's been a busy guy. You know, when you're running a big campaign, you're trying to do a lot. It kind of spreads you thin, so I appreciate the time. Jameson Ellis, good to have you aboard, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. I mean, we're the day before Election Day.
Well, that's crazy.
The day before Super Tuesday. So, no,
Yeah.
we're definitely fired up. And thanks for having me on the show. You know, I know I was on a couple years ago. We had a lot of fun. So whenever you reached out to me, I was like, got to figure out a way to make that happen. So
there you go. Yeah, we did real good. And before we get started, though, you know, Mark Hogan, my cohort, he did send a telegram because he couldn't be here today. And so from Mark Hogan to Jameson Ellis, Dear Jameson, stop. I couldn't make the show. Stop. Keep up the good work. Stop. Forge ahead without stopping. Stop. There's no stopping you now. Stop. Mark Hogan.
Wow.
So that was a telegram that he sent, and I wish he could have made it today because he's an unusual character, but I'll try to muddle through without him.
I think you'll do a great job.
Here we go.
I appreciate that, though. That means a lot.
Yeah, Mark's a good guy. So let me ask you this to start out with, because it seems like these things change kind of often. So I want to talk about the district a little bit. How big is the district? How many counties does it cover? How many individuals? Whatever you can give me on district.
Yeah, so hopefully I don't get in trouble on your show. When I was on Michael Berry a couple of weeks ago, the way I explain it to people is this. If you were to look at the continent of Africa, shrink it, and then place it on top of the district, that's basically what the shape of our district looks like. Okay. I realized later I probably should say it like an elephant's ear. But which is I guess
Africa's good. I think I know Africa better than an elephant's ear.
Yeah, so... Yeah. But I mean, so basically, it covers half of Montgomery County and you know half of say northeast Harris County. So it goes all the way from the southeast part of Conroe, which is where I live, as far south as half of Spring, in Harris County, and then it goes as far east as Splendora, where we're at now, and then it goes all the way down 59 to New Caney, Porter, Kingwood, and half of Humble. Okay, and then it goes as far east as Huffman, and then as far south as Crosby, and all the way down to Channelview.
That's a big footprint. All the way to Channelview?
Yeah.
Man, yeah, that's a big footprint.
Honestly, though, it's not as bad as other districts. So there's other districts in Texas that, because the population is so sparse, is sparse the right word? Yeah, the population is so sparse. Yeah. Those districts can cover 300 miles sometimes. Yeah. Like it's absolutely nuts. Yeah. But you hear, so there's about roughly 750,000 people, that gets represented in the district. This go round, it's just Crenshaw and I. Yeah. And so that allows us to go head to head, face to face. So there's nobody else in the race. I can tell you that as we're out there, boots on the ground, actively talking to constituents, a lot more people have opened their eyes to my opponent. They see the gaslighting that's taking place. They feel disenfranchised, and it's not disenfranchised just from the representation, but disenfranchised from the party. Right? I mean, Ronna McDaniel finally chooses to step down, right, from the RNC. But I mean, you look at, even what was it? It was a little over a year ago. Whenever we were looking for a speaker, the Speaker of the House, right, Kevin McCarthy, bad dude, right? What we refer to as a rhino, right? Republican in name only. Yeah. I think people saw how there were actual Republicans in Congress that were fighting to keep him off of it, because he doesn't really represent. How do you have the Republican of all Republicans, but if you notice what was actually on his jacket, it was a flag of Ukraine.
Oh, really?
Tell me why the Speaker of the House, third most powerful position in our government, is wearing a Ukraine flag, but not an American flag. And then what did my opponent do? Well, he was mad at Republicans like Lauren Boebert and Chip Roy and that were actually fighting to keep him out of that seat. And that's not really what they were fighting for. What they were really fighting for was to have a voice in the committees again, because the committees really had no voice. So, I mean, there was a lot that went on there, but voters see that kind of stuff, and then they see how our representation is misrepresenting us and feel disenfranchised as a result, and so we're sensing that. We're sensing, not too far away from here, actually, is Colony Ridge, right? So we have Colony Ridge over there, and we have this invasion going on along our southern border, but then you have people like my opponent who gaslights us into thinking that he's actually fighting for the border, but then in November, there's a vote for a resolution to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. Where was he? Nowhere to be found. And so how do you spend a year talking about how you believe that Alejandro Mayorkas needs to be impeached because of his failure to do his job, but then not show up to represent your constituents to vote on a resolution to do just that?
Right.
So yeah, all over the district is frustration.
Yeah, I understand. And I think that's across the board, too, with all races.
Yeah.
I was telling somebody a couple of weeks ago, I said, the political landscape looks different this time around than it did 2 years ago. It feels
different.
It does feel different. There's a lot more tension. There's a lot more. It's like the whole Republican Party has just been tossed up, and we're waiting for it to land. Yeah. And I don't know where it's going to land. And I'm sure it's the same for the Democrats, bless their heart. but it seems that way across the board. And so, I recently came up with this kind of tagline that I've been following, and I've kind of made it a rule for the way I vote. So, and what I want to do is I want to vote for a guy who will do the job, who will represent me in the job the same way that I would do the job if I was there myself. And I think that'll help to get everything to land right, if we can get those votes out there right. Well, so are you that guy? That's the question I have. Are you the guy that's going to represent me the same way that I would if I was holding that job myself?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that people are sick and tired of the phoniness in politics. Yeah. Our representatives, and here's one of the things that I tell people, Hank, is that I'm not running to be an honored leader, right? I'm not here to lead you. I'm not running to be your pastor. I'm not running to be your superhero, your savior. I'm not running to be Jesus Christ. I'm running to be your representative. I work for you.
Right.
You know? And so, the last thing that I want is for people to look at somebody like myself and put me up on a pedestal, because I'll probably let them down. I'm imperfect, right? You're imperfect.
Yeah,
we're all
everybody
imperfect.
is, yeah.
But one of the things that I do tell people is I look them in the eye and I say, look, I give you my solemn word, there's 3 things I will never, ever do. Number 1, I will never, ever vote to violate the Constitution of the United States. Second, I will never, ever vote to increase the size of government. And the third thing is I will never vote to increase spending. Not whenever we're $33 trillion in debt with over $200 trillion in promised money. We're basically bankrupt at this point. We got to get the spending. We got to get the spending under control, and we have no right sending money overseas to help other countries protect their border whenever there's an invasion happening at our own. So outside of those 3 things, I'm willing to have a conversation. And here's the thing: is that we may fundamentally disagree on 1 or 2 things, but I'll at least sit down and listen. I'll at least hear you out. And isn't that what our representatives are supposed to do?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
there are representatives.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what they're supposed to do.
And I think that I talk about this all the time. The political class, right? So they have gaslit us into forgetting one of the most paramount principles found in the Declaration of Independence, and it says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from who? From the consent of the governed.
Of the governed, yeah.
That's us.
Yeah.
Right? So I tell people all the time, look, Texas belongs to you, not the likes of triggered neocon political puppets. America belongs to us, not the likes of unelected bureaucrats and special interests. You have a voice. That voice is being ignored. I will make sure that it's heard.
Cool. So I like it. All right, so you mentioned border security, and it's a hot topic.
Oh, yeah.
For almost all races, especially being that we're, I think, 3 miles from Colony Ridge. Excuse me. So I know that securing the border is something that can be done. What I don't know is where is the funding going to come from to secure the border? What are your thoughts on funding for a secure border?
Yeah, so in terms of funding, the funding's already there. The problem is that we're sending it elsewhere.
Right.
Right. So that's a huge issue. In terms of funding, I think that if we were to repeal the 16th Amendment and we were to replace it with the fair tax, and for those that may not know, the 16th Amendment is the progressive income tax. Mm-hmm. So the fair tax not only untaxes all forms of federal income, or federal income tax. That includes savings. That includes taxes on exports. All of that. It's revenue neutral, right? So it doesn't tax what we earn. It taxes what we spend. So you're 100% in control. And because it's revenue neutral, all of the funding that we currently need to run the government is still in place, right? But that means Medicare is protected, Medicaid, the Social Security, all of that stuff is secured and protected. But it's not a matter of raising more money to secure our border. It's a matter of redirecting the funds and putting America first instead of putting Ukraine first, right? Or putting, name any other country in there. We have no business helping other countries to secure their borders and to fight these wars whenever our enemies are amassing along our own southern border. And the last thing that I'll say on this point is under Article 4, Section 4, it promises every state in this union a Republican form of government and that each of them will be protected against invasion. That is the federal government's job. First and foremost is to secure our unalienable rights. But after that is to secure our borders from invasion. Well, look, our enemies know that they're not going to be able to invade our shores, the traditional way.
Right.
So what better way than to have an open border policy to amass along our southern border, and then because we don't have catch and deport, we have catch and release. These criminals can just cross our border and then
still
invade
blows
our
my
country.
mind.
Hey, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't get it.
And that's why I 100% support a moratorium on immigration. But we've got to stop leaking money where it doesn't. The wasteful spending has to stop. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how much more money how much more taxes that we end up paying. It's just going to go into the pockets of politicians and these unelected bureaucrats and all of these special interests. So we have to get somebody in there that's willing to vote no on these damn spending bills.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, look, I'm one voice amongst 435.
Right.
There's only so much that I can do.
But you're one voice plus influence.
If we're going to fix this, it can only be done with the people taking that phrase, taking ownership of that phrase. Mm-hmm. I am the governed, and they can't. And the federal government has no more power than we, the people, give it. The moment that we reclaim that and take responsibility, we can start to get rid of all of these transpublicans, right? Mm-hmm. That's I want to.
That's a new one. I like it.
We can get rid of these transpublicans, and we can put America first constitutionalists in there, people that are actually going to take a stand and stand up for America first before Ukraine and all of these foreign interests.
Right. Okay, so you did mention fair tax. Shouldn't have done that because I'm going down that road for sure. Is that something you're going to fight for?
100%. 100%.
Can it be done? I mean, realistically, can it be done?
Well, as a member of the governed, let me ask you, what do you think? Do you think it can be done? Do you think that we can get enough people engaged and involved to elect enough representatives like what I'm fighting for, and hopefully we'll be winning tomorrow, but to elect enough representatives like myself to be able to go and fight for it?
I would hope, but my only fear is congressional deadlock due to polarity. So that was another question I was going to lead into is, there's so much division between Republicans and Democrats now that even in the occasion that a Democrat puts forth a good piece of legislation, it gets voted down by the Republicans simply because it was put forth by a Democrat. So how are we going to break that? And are you willing to reach across the aisle in the event that it's a good piece of legislation?
I don't know very many good pieces of legislation that Democrats have put forth. So let me
I think most people don't understand, is how freaking complicated legislation
Oh,
really
yeah,
is.
yeah.
It's never just straight up, this is a piece of legislation to secure the border. It has 1,000 things attached to it.
Which is why we
Those
need
documents
which is why we need single subject
thousands
bills.
of pages thick. Yeah, exactly.
We need single subject bills. So
yeah, that'd be nice too.
So let me take a little bit more of a broader perspective and take a step back and let's look at it from more of a 60,000 foot overview.
Okay.
So first of all, what really bothers me is when we talk about compromise. I hate that word. I will never compromise because at this point, the Republican and Democrat parties have moved so far to the left. I'm talking about both parties now, and my opponent is proof of it. They have moved so far to the left that now the Constitution is seen as a far-right ideological document, whenever it's the most centrist document in existence.
Right.
So,
or should be.
So because of that, this is a fight between good and evil, right? This is pro-American constitutionalism, liberty, versus a communist tyrannical ideology, right? It's Marxism, right? And this is exactly what it is. So in that term, no, like good does not compromise with evil. What really upsets me is when we talk about compromise, why is it that Republicans are always the ones expected to compromise? When are we going to get?
I think the Democrats should be expected to compromise as well.
But they're not.
They do the same thing. They're steadfast.
When is it that we're going to have? When can we start getting rid of these nutless Republicans that don't do anything? And when are Republicans going to nut up and actually stand for something? Because that's one of the biggest problems that we have right now. We have Republicans in office that they cave. And they do not stand. And that gridlock, I welcome the gridlock. I welcome the gridlock, and here's why. And I've been saying this too. Shut down the government, or shut down the border, or shut down the government. And then somebody said, well, but if we do that, then the border's going to be wide open. The border's already wide open. Right. The government does not serve our interests. They serve their own interests. And so why not shut down the government and force them to start supporting the interest of the people? We don't have people in Congress that fight anymore. And that's the problem. We care too much about what the mainstream media says. We care too much about what people outside of our districts.
Right.
And this is the problem. I don't care so much about what people outside of this district say. I'm not representing them. Now, in a broad sense, I do, right? If you're America First, then yeah, I am representing some people that are still living in...
Right, but it's your district first.
Right, yeah. Exactly. But I have to make sure that I'm representing my constituents. And I can just tell you that the constituents in this district, they want someone who's going to fight, someone that's going to do exactly what they say they're going to do. And so whenever we take a step back and we look at it from a broader perspective, it's not necessarily as simple as how can we... are we willing to compromise? To me, that's not the right question. The right question is, why is it that Republicans are always expected to be the ones to compromise? That is the question that I think that we really should be asking. And then we have to, again, look at the fact that the Democrat Party in 2024 is not JFK's Democrat Party from the 60s.
It's not, unfortunately, right? But it's not. Yeah.
And I would venture to say the Republican Party. It's not Reagan's Republican Party. Right? So,
You're making me nostalgic.
Yeah. So, government, the problems that have been caused by the government cannot solve those problems. Government is the problem. The only way that we can solve the problems in our government is people like you, people like me. We all have to get involved. For me, it's what I believe that God called me to run for office. That's what I'm doing. But each and every person can do something. Everybody has a sphere of influence, right? Some of us may feel called for school board. Amazing. We need people in our school boards, good people in our school boards to protect our kids from this sexualization and from this trans movement, right? So we need people there. We also need people stepping up and being precinct chairs. We need people that are willing to serve in their local churches, right? We need people that are willing to join the Patriot Academy and become Constitution coaches and actually take people through classes like Constitution Alive and Biblical Citizenship in Modern America. Citizens need to start knowing their rights, defending their rights, but even more so starting to assert their rights, because offense is what wins games. Defense just tries not to lose.
Right.
And so we've got to have people that are willing to go on the offense, that are willing to not care what their jobs think, not care what society thinks, not care what the culture thinks. You know, we can no longer afford to sacrifice truth upon an altar of trying to remain relevant, because there's nothing more relevant than truth, but we've been gaslit into believing that the lie is more relevant than the truth.
Right.
So, sorry, I'm starting to go down this rabbit hole.
I'm with you on, because I think we're
getting philosophical.
I think we're entering a post-truth era now, and I think that things have gotten so bad at this point that the average American no longer has the ability to distinguish what the truth is.
Yeah.
And so we have no way to navigate.
What's crazy, Malcolm X, I think it was Malcolm X that said that he who controls the media controls the masses.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Did you watch, about 3 weeks ago, did you watch the Putin interview with
Tucker Carl? I've been watching it a little at a time. I can only take a little bit of it at a time.
It was crazy to hear Putin say that there's no winning against the American propaganda machine that is the mainstream media, because literally it's like we're living in this bubble, and we're seeing the rest of the world through the lens of the mainstream media.
Right. Well, I think as soon when mainstream media became owned by the Big Five, and profit became the motivating factor behind all that, it went down the tubes.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And if it wasn't for podcasting and wasn't for independent journalism, I think we'd be really screwed.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Because I think a lot of people are starting to catch on that what you see in the media is just what they want you to see, and that's it. You know? So, I mean, it's unfortunate. It makes me worried and paranoid at the same time on the overall direction of the country. You know, we got to get smart, and I say this all the time, we got to get smart right now. We don't have any more time. We've got to vote in the right guys. And this is from, like you said, from the school board all the way to the top. Mm-hmm. So we got to make the right decisions. And if those decisions turn out to be the wrong ones, we got to change them quick.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that.
And that's actually the very reason why we are building an accountability coalition. Because one of the questions that I get asked, and forgive me if you were planning on asking this already.
Okay, but we'll just fold it in.
But one of the questions that I get asked is, Jameson, you're saying all the right things, but Crenshaw said all the right things too. So how are we going to trust that you're not going to go to the swamp and then become eaten up by it, and that you are going to remain true to your word? And I said, everything that we do in life, every decision that we make, there's a risk. Positive or negative, there's going to be a consequence. Mm-hmm. You vote for me, there's a chance, right, that I'm going to be exactly who I say I am. I'm going to do exactly what I'm saying I'm going to do. You vote for Crenshaw, it's going to be exactly the same. But I'm willing to take everything a step further and say, we're building an accountability coalition. And anybody that wants to be part of that coalition can send an email to yourvoice@jamesonellis.com. So we're laying the framework.
Okay.
But that coalition is not going to be run by me, my campaign, or anybody on our staff. That is going to be handed off to constituents to be able to run that coalition. And the whole reason behind that coalition is to hold my feet to the fire. And if I go to D.C. and I don't do exactly what I say I'm going to do, make sure that the grassroots have the numbers to then vote me out in the next primary election. It is very, very important that we have that check and balance, because and you're aware of this. Incumbents have a 98% re-election success rate.
Oh yeah,
because they've got the name recognition, they've got the money,
got the dollars,
they've got the power, they've got all of it, and it's not supposed to be that way.
Right.
It's not supposed to be that way. Well, instead of complaining about it, let's do something. So let's prove that out here in Congressional District 2. We prove that we can have this accountability coalition and hold our representatives, not just mine, but anybody else's, feet to the fire. We prove that out. We can then roll it out to the other 37 congressional districts across the state of Texas. And we prove it out in the state of Texas, then we can start to roll that out nationwide. And
so this is citizens oversight. Is
correct.
what it is.
100%.
Wow, what a concept! You know?
I mean, it's a good why is it taking this long for somebody to do it?
I don't know. I think it should be implemented with every election.
I agree.
Citizens oversight. Because who's being governed? I mean, you talked to us a little earlier about that. It's there. So I mean, yeah, citizens oversight. It's the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we're taking it a step further.
And what was that email address again?
Your voice.
Okay.
At JamesonEllis.com.
I love it. Yeah, that's a great idea.
I'm not doing this to get rich.
Well, there's not a whole lot of money in running for Congress, that's for sure.
No, not in running for Congress.
Well, and even in getting the seat, there's not a whole lot of money in it.
But here's the other piece of that too. Not running to get rich, and that's why I support term limits. That's also why I want to outlaw members of Congress from being able to own and trade stocks while serving in Congress. Because how are we supposed to trust where their loyalties lie?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I agree with that also.
So, I'm not in this to make money. Mm-hmm. When I'm not in D.C. doing my job, I want to be right back here in the district.
So what do you think the term limit should be? 2 terms?
No. Oh, that's not enough to get anything done. No, so 4 terms.
4 terms?
4 terms is 8 years.
Yeah.
It's actually based on data. So whenever you look at the data, if you actually hire, and I like to use the term hire, mm-hmm. if you hire a conservative representative, they are typically conservative for the first 8 years or so, mm-hmm. unless you're an anomaly like Chip Roy, not Chip Roy. Sorry, he hasn't been in 8 years. Unless you're an anomaly like Louis Gohmert, mm-hmm. okay, and you can be in there for 18 years and remain conservative that whole time. That's an anomaly.
Yeah,
he was an anomaly. But after 8 years, voting records start to take a nosedive. So. At the end of the day, what really bothers me is we do have term limits. Technically, it's called the voter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But again, that 98% reelection success rate, because of the money, because of all of that, there has to be some kind of a protection in place for the middle class, for the mm-hmm. working class that can't afford the same types of resources that the political class can afford. There has to be some kind of mechanism in there. So I believe term limits, if we're going to place term limits on our president, then we need to also place term limits on the Congress. That's the House.
I'm with you.
And the Senate.
I agree with that. Fantastic. And I just forgot what the next question was I was going to ask, and it was kind of important. Voter education. So I'm big on voter education. What do you think the best method by which average guy can get good information about races and candidates? Because it's hard to obtain. It really is.
It is.
There's a lot of campaign rhetoric. And what I like to try to do on this show, at least, is get past the campaign rhetoric and find out who the human is.
Yes.
So we can get there. But how should the average voter guy go about educating themselves on all the different campaigns and races that are going on?
Well, first and foremost, it's a full-time thing.
It really is.
You've got to make sure you're staying educated all year round. You can't afford to think, well, now it's the off season.
Take a break.
So we're going to take a break.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying that you have to get a master's degree in it or anything. But what I am saying is, you've got to stay up to date with what's going on. Mm-hmm. You've got to stay plugged in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And so the first thing that I recommend everybody do if you want to get involved in politics. And I hate calling it politics because I hate politics. I hate my government and I hate politics, but I love my country. But go through biblical citizenship in modern America. And if you're not a Christian, that's fine. Go through Constitution Alive. Get that foundation of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. Know what your rights are.
Right.
Because if you don't, you know how bankers can tell the difference between what's real and what's counterfeit. They study the truth so much, and whenever they come across a counterfeit, they're like, something's not right here.
Right.
we need to do the same thing as citizens. We need to know the relationship between the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, as well as the Federalist Papers, and even study the Anti-Federalist Papers. Right? Make sure you understand what was going on in the days of our founding fathers. But the Declaration of Independence, that is the framework upon which the Constitution was built on.
Right.
You can't separate the two. So,
Right.
and it's what I tell people in business terms, the Declaration would be the Articles of Incorporation, and the Constitution would be the bylaws of how the corporation is supposed to operate.
Bylaws and mission, yeah.
So you have got to know your rights before you can ever defend or assert your rights. So that's a really great place to start. Then, whenever you start to hear stuff on the mainstream media, you'll be like, wait, that doesn't sound right. Because I remember in this class that I took that this is the way that our government was set up. That's wrong. When you look at what Biden is doing, or even any Republican, Crenshaw, right? When you look at that, nope, that is not right. So that's having that foundation is extremely important. That'd be the first step. Second step is there's some resources that I like to hook people up with. One of them is going to be Liberty Score. So they can go to libertyscore.conservativereview.com. It hasn't been updated recently, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but that's why I've got a backup. And that is the Freedom Index, which they are connected to the John Birch Society. Okay. So the Freedom Index, and you can go to thenewamerican.com and click on Freedom Index. You can look up the Freedom Score of any legislator.
And it provides voting records and such.
The voting records, why it was a good or bad vote.
Okay.
It provides so many resources.
Great.
So, but that way you can get educated on the people that are supposedly representing you. I like to say usually they're misrepresenting you. But you've got to be able to have some kind of a pulse on the way that they're voting. And then you also need to be able to tell when is someone gaslighting you or not. And so again, I'll go back to the Mayorkas example because that's the easiest one for people to understand. If someone spends over a year calling for the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas and then fails to show up to vote on a resolution to do just that, that is called gaslighting.
Right.
Whenever you defend a Senate border bill that allows anywhere between 5,000 to 8,500 illegals, that's an acceptable amount, and that same bill sends more money to Ukraine than to secure our own southern border. Whenever you have somebody that defends that bill, didn't get to vote on it, but defended it. When you have somebody in office that defends that bill, but then later on Fox News claims that I've been telling people for the longest time that we can't just send money to Ukraine, but we also need to secure the border.
Right.
That's untrue. But if you don't know these things, you don't know the history of your legislator or your representative, and you're not keeping up with that, you're not going to be able to spot those inconsistencies. I tell people all the time, I'm probably getting pretty boring to talk to because I'm one of the most consistent people that you'll ever meet. My answer is going to be the same for almost everything. Because I'm consistent, but you got to have that foundation. You also got to be able to know how your legislator is actually misrepresenting you in office. But then you've got to get engaged.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to get plugged in, and you've got to get engaged. We have to stop using work as an excuse. And I might get in trouble with some people for this, but you've got to stop using your family as an excuse. Benjamin Rush, who's known as one of three of the most prominent founding fathers, he's the founding father of public schools under the Constitution, not what we call public school today. He said that the purpose of public schools is three things. It's to teach our kids to first love and serve their God. Second, to love and serve their country. And then third, to love and serve their family, in that order. God, country, then family. Why was country a higher priority over family? Well, he said it's because if we ever lose control of our country, it will become the great enemy of our family.
That makes sense.
And honestly, we're seeing that all over America right now, from Congress and the courtroom to the classroom, to the southern border and our small family-owned businesses. And, whenever I think about our first responders, when we think about our active duty military, they lay their lives on the line, and we trust that they're going to be willing to lay their lives on the line.
Right.
Why? Duty, right? They actually put country before family, and people think, well, family comes before country. Well, if that's really the case, whenever our house is on fire and we call 911 and the fire department is sent out, how are we supposed to trust that those firefighters that show up are going to be willing to do their jobs? Because if they put family before country, and that word country can be swapped out with duty.
I got you.
Right?
Yeah.
How can we trust? How can we trust that they're not going to just cower down and say, you know what, I got a family to take care of?
Yeah, I'm not going in there.
I'm not going in that burning building.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I hear some babies crying in there, but you know what? I got a family, and they come first. They come first before anybody else. Because if I can't take care of my family, how am I supposed to be?
Right.
How are we supposed to trust that, whenever we do send our men and women off to a real war that warrants us to be in, which I haven't really had one since World War II.
Been a while.
How are we supposed to trust that they're going to be willing to do their duty if they put family before country? So, this is an interesting conversation I like to have with people, because it's like, look, when we focus on family, we're focusing inward. We become selfish. It becomes all about us.
Right.
I don't care about anything else around me. But whenever you focus on duty and service to others, which is what that's talking, you're also teaching the next generation. Guess what, bub? It ain't about you. This isn't about how much money you can earn. This isn't about how much power you can gain. This is about the impact on others' lives that you can make. We don't have to legislate an impact through welfare and force everybody to become givers by taking money from them against their will to do it, if we just teach it to the next generation by putting God first, then country, and then family, because it'll become an innate part of, and the last thing I'll say to this, the Bible says, and I forget where exactly it is, but greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his life, not for his family, but for his friends. Mm-hmm. It's expected that you'll lay down your life for your family, but what about being willing to take that bullet for your partner that you're sitting next to in your patrol car? Right? So.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, so, we've got a big race coming up in November. This is an election year. And some say that we're headed toward disaster no matter what. Some say we're headed toward a dangerous, dangerous time for America.
Yeah.
What do you think? Without getting into specifics on candidates or anything else, I'm talking about just where we are as a country and as individual societies. Are we safe? Are we headed toward disaster?
I'm not black-pilled by any stretch of the imagination. Mm-hmm. There's always hope. What I like to tell people is, look, the communists have been at this for over 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
They have been very patient. They've been playing the long game. They have been employing the principle of incrementalism, infiltrating the 7 mountains of cultural influence. Our churches, our government, business. Right. We've got to start thinking strategically, and we've got to start doing the same. And I don't like calling it a great experiment, because my patriotism isn't for an experiment. Mm-hmm. My patriotism is for an ideal. The United States of America is an ideal that our rights are not granted by man, that our rights are unalienable and are granted by God. That is an ideal worth fighting for and not giving up on. So do I think that dark times may lay ahead? Yes. I would venture to say we're in those dark times right now.
In some degrees we are, yeah.
But I'm not willing to give up on it, and I'm not black-pilled. right? So, and what I mean by that, for those that may not know what that means, it means that no matter what we do, we're screwed.
Right.
No, I refuse to have that defeatist mentality. I refuse to believe that. One of the things that the word that I feel like God has given me for this campaign is the word resilience. We need resilience in testicular fortitude, and we need to realize that and I don't subscribe to the idea that we're under judgment right now. I subscribe to the idea that, you know what, there is a massive revival going on across this country, that even now that God is changing the hearts and minds of the people, and that he's fanning the flames of liberty in each and every one of us. And sometimes, let me back up for a second. Our founding fathers, they fought for liberty. We are where we are today because we've been fighting from liberty. It's a different mindset. We haven't really experienced tyranny. I mean, think about in China, where it's against the law. Think about in China where it's against the law to be a Christian. But yet people still gather in the underground church, and God is moving, because that's real tyranny. We're not experiencing that here in the United States. I mean, we still got air conditioning.
Right.
We still got internet. We still got cell phones. We still got people like,
running water.
I want the next. I mean, whenever we're still focused on getting the next best cell phone, we're not experiencing tyranny. But I've always said, if we lose our country, it will not be because of corruption in the government. It will be because of complacency in the electorate. But I do believe that God's not done with America. As long as we have people in this country that are willing to stand up, fight, and intercede, I don't believe that America, as we know it, is over. But now we're just in a place where we have to fight for it. We claim to be patriots, and there's a saying that everybody wants to be a patriot until it's time to do patriot shit.
Right.
And there was a phrase. There was a phrase that, and if we go back to December 25th, as George Washington is getting ready to cross the icy Delaware River, he lost the majority of his soldiers. And, which this was going to be the turning point of the war, one way or the other. So most of his soldiers had abandoned him, and the few that stayed behind, Washington read the words of Thomas Paine that were written just days before that said that these are the times that try men's souls. That the summer soldier and sunshine patriot will in these present times shrink from duty. But those that stand by it now deserve the thanks of every man and woman. Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, 2024. These are the times that try men's souls. And are you going to be a sunshine soldier or a summer soldier and sunshine patriot? Or are you going to have some fortitude? Are you going to have that resiliency and stand by it now in a fight? We're only defeated if we accept defeat. So that's the perspective that I try to take. I mean, we're not in a physical war right now, but our founding fathers were.
Right.
They fought for liberty. Well, now let's take that same perspective and stop fighting from liberty, and let's start fighting for liberty once again.
There you go. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. I think it was pretty powerful.
No, I appreciate you having me.
So let's talk a little bit about this watch party you got going on.
Yeah.
So when's that?
That will be Tuesday, so tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So tomorrow, Tuesday, 7 o'clock, Pueblo Ritaville, here
That's
in Splendor.
Okay.
Yep. And we're really excited about it. There used to be a restaurant there that was one of my favorite restaurants that shut down, during COVID, and that was Cole's Smokehouse.
Cole's Smokehouse.
And I'll never forget the first time that I walked into Pueblo Ritaville. I mean, my heart broke because I was like, I miss Cole's. Yeah. That was a date night place for my wife and I.
I got you. Yeah.
And I walked in, and I'm with my buddy John. I walked in, and I'm like, man, did a bag of Skittles just throw up in here? Like, this is not, because, it was rustic.
Right. Yeah,
it was
rustic
like
looking,
Western, and But I have really grown to love that the food's good, the beer is good, and your boy likes some good beer.
Yeah.
Great atmosphere, right? And so, but at the end of the day, they're a local business. And I have a heart for small, local, Texas-owned businesses because I myself am a self-employed small business owner. And so, I'm like, how can we support a local business here in Montgomery County? And, they let us put our big 4x8 signs up there. So I sat down with the owner and I was like, are y'all ever busy on Tuesday nights? She's like, no, not really. I was like, you want to be? I was like, I want to try to get as many people here for you as possible on Tuesday. And I said, what we're doing, running for Congress, of course, my face is plastered on the sign outside. I said, I would just like to bring people here to keep you guys busy that night and give you maybe a record night. Maybe it'll be a record night, maybe not. But and she was like, yeah, that would be great. So yeah, really awesome. Really awesome for them to do that. We're gonna have it on the patio. Okay. So I'll tell everybody, plenty of food, plenty of booze. Yeah. And we'll have live music. So I was telling you about Dan Golvach, right? Mm-hmm. So before we started the show, Dan Golvach is he's what's known as an angel dad. He's actually met Trump on several occasions, taken pictures with him. Okay. Back in 2015, his son was brutally murdered by a 5-time deported illegal alien. And he's a big supporter of mine because he's seen the gaslighting from Crenshaw. And he's also a musician, though. Okay, cool. And so he's going to be coming out and he's going to be playing. And we're really excited about it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So I definitely want to invite any of your viewers that want to come out. Of course, invite you to come out.
And that's going to kick off about what, 5, 6 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock and until hopefully at least 11, because we won't really start knowing any of the real results until about 11:30. So hopefully about 11 o'clock. And they technically close at 9:30, but I'm hoping maybe we can bribe them, a little bit.
I bet you can. There you go. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Jameson Ellis. If you want to be the first person to shake his hand after he wins this congressional seat, show up tomorrow, Pueblo Ridaville, and it's on FM 2090 West, just out of Splendora, about 1.5 miles down the road on the right. Great restaurant, good food, great entertainment. Jameson Ellis will be there. I'll be there. There's going to be a whole bunch of people there. So come hang out and celebrate liberty. Celebrate a little bit of what we need for sure. Make sure and get out and vote if you haven't voted already. This should give you an idea of who to vote for. And I'm Hank That. This is Hank's Think Tank, and we'll see you in the next one.